Well, g'day my friends, welcome back to New Dollarton. Exciting episode today, we're going to be finally building the light rail network that's going to be stretching throughout New Dimesburg, connecting up the city and all the neighborhoods around it. Well, at least a bunch of them. I've got a couple of ideas of whereabouts this thing's going to be heading. This is all based on the light rail network in Jersey City, doing a pretty similar thing, connecting up a bunch of neighborhoods. And what I really like about this is that it uses old train line, something that's similar to the one that's in Sydney, which I'm always a big fan of. I love it how they repurpose this thing, and in a similar way, we're going to be doing the same type of thing. We're going to be using some old train line, which I know a lot of you guys have been like, well, we know what you're doing, $2. We know what this line's for. Yeah, I mean, a bunch of this is going to be used for that light rail network. However, there's a couple of things that I still have major questions about, and I think are going to be kind of challenging when we start laying down the tracks. First of all, I do want it to connect up to our central station, and we have a couple of options of whereabouts this can be going. I don't really want it to be connecting via the road network. I'd like it to be using one of these train lines that's already stretching into our central station. Maybe this one, could potentially use this section, I don't know. And then we need to get into New Dimesburg, into the heart and center of the city, and I don't really know whereabouts that's going to be going. I do know though that it will be stretching through here and connecting up this old train line, which has just been left, and I think is going to be really well needed for the people that live over here. I think that'd be kind of lovely. And then we've also got a lot of green space that is just open and vacant, because to be honest, I don't really know exactly where this is going to be going out here, but I would like to connect it up. But you know what? Before we even do any of that, I'm going to show you something. I mean, look at all this. This is just a bunch of people just struggling with our current situation of public transport. I mean, these poor buggers, I mean, not only do they have to rely on a bus network that is pretty poor, I mean, I've barely done anything in terms of a good network, but all these guys are relying on taxis, which we've got plenty of taxis driving around, but I mean, that's pretty expensive. So I think a light rail would be very much appreciated. But then also, not all these guys are just standing around waiting for public transport. We've got a serious homeless problem at the moment. And I didn't realize that this is actually a bug that when you demolish a house, the people of that old place get stuck. They are meant to be relocating into the city, but I think there's a bug that stops that from happening. Luckily, there is a mod. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to Paradox Mods. Yes, this one, Bye Bye Homeless. I'm going to give this a go, and let's see if we see a bit of this. People just moving out. Maybe that's going to completely affect our population. Let's see. Whoa. Okay. I think this is taking effect so quickly that I haven't even changed some of my graphic settings in Lumina, which I usually like to do before I even start my recording, but I just kind of hit play and fast forward it all and was just going to have a little look at seeing what happens with all the people just hanging around here, but it looks like the mod has taken effect. Let me just brighten up some of these shadows. People have now just started to move, and I believe they are, yeah, they're moving away. Oh geez, look at all these people. Everybody is heading towards our central station. This is gonna get insanely busy very, very quickly. So let's just keep an eye on the population, and we'll just keep track of where people are moving around the city. And that was a bug, by the way. I do actually want homeless people within the city, and I would love them to be moving into another place rather than just leaving. But I think that this is a good solution for now. But let's move on to this light rail. Okay, so the first pieces of the network are down, and already I've got two dangerous thoughts. It cannot be easy with me. I feel like I always have to make it more complicated than it really needs to be, but I've got a couple of ideas. Here's idea number one. The tram depot. I want it to be over this side somewhere. We obviously have a big chunk of industry that we can repurpose and move around. This whole area is going to be under construction anyways. So a tram depot over here would kind of make a bit of sense. However, I do want our network to target this side of Florence rather than our industrial side. I think it needs to be as close to our suburbs as possible to get people in and out of the city. However, in saying that, I really don't want to go too much onto street level. I know this is a tram, but sticking with the spirit of how things are done in Jersey City, this is very much repurposing this old train line. It rarely goes onto street level. It's rarely in the middle of this. That only really happens down in the central part of Jersey City. So I'm gonna try and stick with that theme. Now, that means that we only really have this train line to work with. And that's not that bad because I think we could actually repurpose this train line into a tram line. And yes, it's not like super close down here, but you know, this isn't Europe. This isn't going to be the greatest tram line ever. This is going to be a light rail network that is reusing bits and pieces that I think are probably going to be the most cost effective. And not a tram, it is light rail. And light rail doesn't always hit up some of the most obvious of areas. So I'm going to stick with that theme. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to drag him over and connect him up here. I do still want to see freight coming into this area, so we'll have to only repurpose just a little bit. And so with the light rail now stretching on this train line, I think we might need to turn this section into our tram depot. Yeah. Sorry, everybody. There are now a couple of things we need to work out, and it's going to be a little tricky. First of all, we need to figure out some sort of road connection, but more importantly, how on earth is this track going to get connected to this guy? See this train down here? I still want to see these trains, except rather than taking this route, they're going to have to somehow get through this way, and I think that train line will snake all through underneath this section because I do like the train connection. I think it needs to continue, and with some sort of rail yard here, I reckon that underneath this highway makes a bit of sense. So this needs to get over to here, and I don't really want to create an intersection or anything like that. I think that the tram actually needs to go over the top. And of course, this isn't enough clearance, but I always think it's easier just to drag these things out and then use things like move it. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm gonna just raise it up so it's just clearing those catenaries and those wires. And I think that'll do pretty well. And Move It does give you a couple of new options if you're used to it in City Skylines 1. I am a really big fan of this manipulation mode because, as you can see down here, I feel like it's a little bit too sharp of an incline, but I can actually get into this like tiny node here. I don't know what you would call this, but I'm gonna call him a tiny node, and I can stretch it out a little bit. And look at that nice smooth incline. Love it. So that is the bridge going over the top. Now for this road connection, I could connect them up over here, but I am gonna try something a little bit sneakier. What about if I just cut right through that parking lot? And once again, better bulldozer for the win. We can go through and actually delete some of these road markings. Can I delete this guy? Oh, I really hope I can. No bother. I actually reckon I'm going to make this the entrance to our tram depot, and this will be just a big old car park. Rather than having this as the entrance, I think that we make it just over here. And with that in mind, we could probably convert all this into an alley, maybe remove some of the surface, drag this guy out a little bit, slap down a couple of parking decals. Can we do a curvy one on this one? Oh, you bet we can. And a couple little props just for a bit of extra detail, some fences, just for that little bit of safety. And I think that this has come together pretty well. And ladies and gentlemen, this is why City Skylines 2 is just so much better than City Skylines 1. Like to be able to do what I just did, dragging out the surface and extending out what is a pre-existing building and just modifying it, even removing some of the props that exist within this. This is insane. Like that level of detail. I know these are mods that allow you to do that, but I mean, mods is what City Skylines is all about. And I am just blown away by the fact that we are able to get into the real nitty gritty of all this sort of stuff. So happy with that. And I think this is looking pretty good. I might change a couple of extra little things as we go. I'm tempted to even change the surface and just make it a little bit of a different color because we do have other surfaces available. So that's an option, but I feel like I need to move on because I've only put a small little dent in our entire network and I haven't even built any stops yet. So I might actually do that. But before I move on from this area, I'm going to make that a dead end just for now, and this will be when we do drag out a couple of stops in this episode. This is going to be like the end of the line. So my question to you guys, whereabouts do you think this thing is going to go? I am going to drag it out this way along this old train line, and this is not going to be a good example of what public transport should look like. This is a city using old infrastructure, doing truly the bare bones, but this is not a good spot for it. I think that if you were going to spend the money and do some decent infrastructure, you'd put it around here where all the people live. But we'll drag them out this way because I think that is kind of closer to what it's like in Jersey City, and all out this way. I think this is exactly where we should be dragging it out. But you can sort of see the path it could be taking. We could be going and then stretching into here and doing something a whole lot more meaningful. But I don't know. I'm thinking that it could be a really fun little stretch, but that is for extension number 2. Extension number 1 is dragging all the way through here, which we're going to get to. But I did mention before, maybe like 15 minutes ago in this video, that I have 2 wild, crazy ideas. One of them was placing this guy down here, and the next one, well, let's get to the next one. So I'm kind of digging the path of this track. I feel like it's hitting up all the right areas. I love this little transition and how you can see the old rail line. But like I keep alluding to, something I keep on bringing up, I'm sure you're all so sick of it, but a good portion of this light rail is old converted train line. And I can't say it really looks that way. And it usually does kind of keep its appearance. A lot of the places that I have seen that have done and undergone the same process still kind of look like an old train line. But all of this, not really. This is all fairly fresh, fairly modern. So, I've got an idea. So I think you can see where I'm going with all of this, and it's working, and I think it looks alright. However, it is quite a lot of extra effort. And just doing that little segment right here, this is like one of the easier segments. And if I was going to do the rest of it, I don't even know if this is going to be totally worth it. But it's just an idea. I might just leave it. I have also just been experimenting with some decals over the top. These are by Sully, and I think that they do work pretty well. I mean, this is kind of like more in line with how these sort of areas do look. So I could do something like this, but honestly, I think I might just stick with dragging out this line and just think about all of this idea. But what do you reckon? Do you reckon it's worth it or not? I'm leaning towards maybe not. Getting back to this segment, which you've just dragged out, I am a big fan of this, and I think it is just going to be super useful having this line going through. I think we'll have a stop here eventually when we do place them out, but originally I was thinking that it could potentially go this way and over the bridge and then connect up to some sort of stop, which might be taking the place of this line, but I do like this line, so maybe that's not what we do. We do have this space over here, so it could be sitting in not exactly the same area as the central station, but it could be as part of it, and maybe rather than taking this route, which I think is probably better just to be dedicated for cars, because we're also kind of just avoiding the city, whereas we should probably try to get it to the heart and center of everything. So why don't we go down the middle, and then rather than going along Cypress Street, which is meant to be a different name, but that's fine for now, maybe we go somewhere around here or stretching, I don't know, still trying to figure it out. It definitely needs to target more of the city, but it does give us a good opportunity to upgrade some of these roads. I think sticking true to Jersey City and what the light rail is doing down here, because that is important to me, trying to capture what it's truly like in these areas. You know, the light rail rarely shares the same road as the cars. It is very much doing its own path. So I think rather than taking any of these streets, I think we go down the middle here. But then when it gets to down here, I mean, this should be a little bit interesting. And just check out, I mean, it's a bit hard to see with such dark shadows, but look at that little gap. I love that. Now, that is also quite similar, and I like the fact that it is kind of stretching towards our central station, going through some real good heart and center of a lot of high density areas. And I think you can see we are definitely on the path towards it. The stretch of light rail does raise up and become elevated in Jersey City, so that actually would make a lot of sense in this scenario as well, because we do have to kind of work around this. This is going to be the most busiest of intersections, and I do need to kind of keep it as little interruptions as possible. So an elevated section is definitely going to be very important. And then we can figure out how it connects up to our central station too, but you can see it. It's on its path, which is very cool. We could, of course, just continue going straight. The one in Jersey City, of course, it does have to navigate this big shopping mall that sits down here, which is very, very interesting. Obviously, if I was going to do anything like that in my version, I'd have to build a giant shopping center, but I mean, this is an episode about light rail. I'm not about to just spend hours building some custom. I did it. I built the shopping center. Did I need the light rail to navigate around this? Not really, but I do think that it does add just a nice little nod to what is happening in Jersey City, and I always think stuff like that is important. And I have to admit, I do kind of like him down here. It is a nice little fit, and there is quite a lot to unpack. So let me just unpack it all. So this is custom because I have spliced in a whole bunch of buildings into one another, and they are now acting like a shopping center. Well, kind of. I'll talk about that in just a moment, but they aren't acting like their intended purpose. So this medical university practice, this is an extension to the university. Well, I don't know, something like that. I've never placed this thing down, but this is not functioning at all. This just does nothing except for cost money, which I'm actually fine about. The same for these guys. These are storage extensions for the incineration plant. I've got two of them. They are only creating some ground and air pollution, bit of noise pollution too, just to throw in a little bit of that as well, and costing us money. Totally fine with that. As well as this warehouse, a bit of noise pollution. But also down here, I have spliced in a building that is functioning, I guess, more for its intended purpose. This is an activity plaza, and I like the fact that it is providing attractiveness to the city, and it's adding in a little bit of well-being and also import costs, improving. Oh, hold on. It's making it worse. Whatever. It is improving a bit of attractiveness. So that is all I really care about. I like that. I like that it is adding to our mall, as well as these little shops that I've placed down here. Just a bit of a shopping plaza. And these are providing employment as well as a bit of shopping, which I think is very nice. And I've just done a little bit of detail. We've got some little palm trees out front, and I've got a couple of little planters too, which I think are quite nice. A couple more things we could be placing down here, so I might come back to that little area. And then there's just some little bits and pieces that came with these buildings, but I think work just fine. You know, this road just here, this is perfect for this sort of stuff. This is where obviously cargo and all the goods is coming into our mall. So we've got a couple of them, which I think is a good alleyway and a good little stretch for that. And I also think we'll probably connect up our parking garage to that road as well, rather than this road, because this road doesn't need anything more like this. However, I would like our mall to act more like a mall. So let's have a little look and see if we can find some buildings that would increase some of the retail that's happening within the city, but then also maybe providing some jobs. And I like them to be nice and spliced in and also connected to an area where I want people to be wandering into. I don't exactly want to place it down here because then people will walk into our maintenance area and where all the goods is coming into. So I think if we're going to be placing down some of these, we place them alongside here. Oh, actually, just a little bit off topic, maybe not completely off topic, but I kind of like this building that I just found. It is a bit more of an entranceway, which I think could be another entrance into the mall. Whereas these guys, I imagine, are their own separate shops. They don't actually lead into the mall. Instead, this guy looks like it is a bit more of an entrance. So I might just get that guy in and we'll just splice him kind of like that. I kind of like that it pokes out a little bit, but let's make it match the colors. And I believe I've still got the colors copied over. Yeah, so that's the same as the brick out the front here, but I do want the color of that rooftop. So I'm just going to copy that over and we'll paste him in. And that is spectacular. I'll just move a couple of these little guys. Ooh, don't want to move them. I kind of like those signs. We'll leave him there. And that looks pretty good. Okay, let's add some more shops to this. I think this building will do. I'm going to use this one because it is already quite far into our complex and, oh dude, come on. Okay, I'm going to place him over here so that we will see people hopefully walking through this entrance or at least pretty close by. Who knows? I can see at a point in City Skylines 2 where we start getting some more custom assets. Back in the day, we had a whole bunch of oopsies. Maybe too many? Maybe too many. So I guess I gotta be a little bit careful where I place these down. But what I was saying was, in City Skylines 1 days, we had a bunch of assets on the Steam Workshop that were just little cubes that you could splice in to buildings like this, and they'd basically act like commercial or residential and essentially do what I'm trying to do right now. But I don't know if this is gonna work exactly how I want it to. I just want to add more shops, but I don't really want to mess up these guys down here. So instead, maybe we go over to this big building and we can do the exact same thing. Maybe splice them into this one. Is this going to work? Or this might work a little bit better. These are a little bit taller and I think they fit into that. Oh, pretty well. Oh man, the things you do. I mean, it's not totally bulletproof, but we now have about 20 of the larger, well, at least as large as I can go, commercial buildings spliced into our mall. So I believe it is now functioning like a mall will, which means it is attracting a lot of people to our city and also giving us good reason why we need more public transport in an area like this. So that's working out pretty well. I also forgot to mention that we do have a parking lot here. But I mean, I'm not like the biggest fan of this parking lot. I would like to be creating something that's a little bit, I don't know, a little bit more like what parking lots truly look like. This looks just a little bit too flash, but I guess it does kind of fit in with the general mall vibe. I think I might place a stop here. And that way people can just kind of like walk across and get into our shopping center. I'm kind of imagining that we've got a couple of different entrances, but this is one of them. And I think that is kind of nice. Then what's it gonna do when it gets here? I think we can justify maybe crossing this road, but then I think we need to rise up. Or maybe rise up here. You know what? Let's remove this connection here. This is already a really busy road. We don't need another intersection for cars just to navigate through. So we'll remove that, but I do like the fact there is a road here, so we will re-drag him out. However, he won't connect up. He'll just sit there. I reckon I might go for a bit of a bend in this track. I don't like that it's so straight. I'm spending a pretty good amount of time smoothing out these nodes, but I think it's worth it because we are getting a very nice, smooth little gradient for our light rail to stretch up, which I do really like. It's very satisfying. I'm glad I have disconnected this road because I think that makes a lot more sense. Obviously, we have a bit of no clearance here for the people trying to get into here, but I'm gonna try and rearrange where this sits. At the moment, it's really just plonked there. I think we could probably rearrange him, so he might be connected here instead. But what I want to do is, the reason why I have kind of made it bend like this, I did need a little bit of variation. I think it makes a little bit more sense, or maybe not more sense, but maybe let's make it make a bit of sense. I think that it has stretched out this way so that we are not having to build such a big piece of infrastructure over the top of an intersection. I just think that is a bit messy. Obviously, we have a road here, but this is... do we rearrange this now? I don't know. Probably shouldn't we? You know what? Before I delete anything, I'm just gonna show you some of the things we're about to delete because I'm actually going to reshuffle all of this because it's looking a little bit outdated. I mean, look at all this. There are a couple of little things that I do really love still, like I love this little bridge, and I think that this has served a nice purpose up until now, but I think we can do a little bit better, and that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm also half tempted to add a couple of extra larger buildings around here, but as you can see, we do have our ferry terminal, and let me just see if I can get that view up. Yeah, there it is. See those lines? I pretty much cannot terraform into those lines because that's where the turning circle is for our ferry. So I don't have a huge amount of room, but I am going to work with what I can work with. So take one good look at this because I'm pretty much going to delete all of it. And this is just going to be such a puzzle piece because we have so many things that need to be connected up. We need an intersection for our light rail, which needs to be elevated. We need all these roads to be connected, as well as this guy over here. I do want this to be connected over here, so that is really important. A light rail station needs to be connected, which I think you can kind of get a good idea whereabouts we're going to be placing it. And then, most importantly, we need our underground tunnels that are going to connect up this massive interchange, but then also our outside connection. So that is going to be an incredibly important piece. And I wasn't happy with how that one looked before. I will continue this road, because I think that was quite interesting. But this one, I've got something kind of special for this one. Still working out some of the kinks, but we are definitely getting there. I am trying to discourage people from walking around here because I will create my own pathway that'll be a little bit safer and can hold a bit more of a larger volume of people, because at the moment I don't think that these roads are really going to cut it. Plus, it's not going to be the nicest walk. All around here, I am making it a little bit wider for this highway because I think that more lanes is going to help people actually get into this intersection. But then I would also like to create some sort of custom toll booth. I'm sure at some stage we'll get toll booths in this game, but for now, I'll just do that. So we are getting there. Now, I think that this tunnel works really well, but this one, of course, still needs a little bit of work. So I like the way it kind of drags out, and I like the way that it does dip underneath this road, but of course I don't love this. So I have to try and figure out a different way of making that a little bit smoother. I mean, I just made it into a bridge, which was kind of easy. And what in the world do we do with this road here? And honestly, I don't really know. I can't see where it's going to connect back to this, and I sort of feel like it might be a bit unnecessary now. So I don't love it, but I'm going to delete it, and we'll just have to think about how we could maybe have a bridge going across there, because I did sort of like it. It was a bit quirky, a bit interesting, and I felt like it just added to the general uniqueness of this area. So I don't know, I'd love to hear from you guys. How can we include it? Maybe it's a footbridge, maybe it's for, I don't know, the light rail. Probably not the light rail. It's gonna be for something though, or maybe it's not. Maybe we just don't have a bridge there. Let me know. So before with this junction, I had a couple of separate networks, and I felt like it was just too much infrastructure, and it looked a bit awkward. So I'm hoping that I can change it and make it just on the same node here. So let's just see how that looks. Because I would absolutely prefer it if it had more of this appearance, but that is just too sharp for my liking. So I'm hoping with Move It, maybe I can move some of these nodes and extend it out. I don't think that this is going to be possible though, but I'll just give it a little crack. Ooh, check it out. Oh, snap. What? This is actually working. I can't believe it. So I'm using the manipulation mode right here, and I am just grabbing some of these little tiny ones, these pink tiny ones, and they're a bit tricky to select, but once you get them, you got them. Sweet fancy Moses, he's done it. Ladies and gentlemen, he's bloody done it. If it isn't completely obvious by now, we are not going to be extending out this network beyond this point, at least in this episode. So I will just show you whereabouts I'm thinking. We'll probably extend him out over here. He'll make a bit of a turn into this old train line and go under this bridge and sweep around our hospital and then go all through here into Lawrenceville. I do want to detail this up and make it into a nice little neighborhood slash second city for New Dimesburg. You know, I feel like New Dimesburg is on the other side of the station, and then this is Lawrenceville, and it's a bit of a place. A big old skyscraper will sit here as well. So, you know, this will be a little later on. So if you've got any suggestions before we start building there, please let me know. But for now, we are working pretty close to finishing up our network, and then of course we're going to add in our stations. And this one, well, where on earth is this one gonna go? I've got one last wild idea. Yeah, a couple of wild ideas in this episode. Here's the next one. You know, you can like upgrade this and add in an extra pier if I wanted to. I don't want to do that. Or I could add in a transfer terminal, and this is all for the buses. Well, what about if I made one for the light rail, but my very own one? You know what? That's actually the end of the network. Should we start connecting them up? I think we should. And of course, we have to have some at our shopping center. I think it can go all the way through here. Nothing. Or maybe one here. Nah, nothing. One in the middle. Oh, that's kind of fun. And then I think that's a pretty good distance to then have another one probably around here. And as much as I want to place one around here, I think that the next one would most likely be here. But I'm not going to do that today. And because this isn't a dead end, I can't actually make another stop here. So I will, in fact, make a stop up here, but this is just temporary. I think I will actually have a stop that sits around there at some point, but this is just for, let's just see something happen. Oh, and that's it. Before we watch these guys roll around, I want to change the color of these things because that's a little bit too bright for my liking. I reckon we just go for a very plain, very ordinary white. Maybe just like a bit off, not too bright. And I think now that we've got these down here, let's just follow it along. See how many people it picks up and see if people can actually access our tram stops. And that's our network. A couple of little thoughts. I need to check out whether or not people can actually access, oh, there we go. There's someone down here now. So people can access this one, but I'm pretty sure he had to walk along this track just around here rather than walking alongside it, cutting through the middle of it. So I do have to work on figuring out a better connection there. I think it's as easy as dragging out a path. And the same for this guy down here. Nobody can really access it. I might just try something a bit more interesting and let's make a ramp. Oh, it's a bit wonky, but let's see if that's enough. You know what? Just a thought. Not in the middle. Let's make it on either edge. Look at them all, just making good use of those little pathways and the ramps going up. And yeah, look at them, just walking around the edge of it, and I've seen a couple people cross along here too. And that's a great thing about trams. Now, I still need to detail this up, and it's got to come next episode because I have just spent a long time on this one. However, I do want to connect everything up and make sure that people are accessing all of this very easily, because right now I have made just a ton of mess. And in terms of getting people to this whole giant transport hub, which is honestly becoming a giant transport hub, we've got the train station, the ferry, and now the light rail. I do not want people walking through this section. This is only for car traffic, and they love it. They love walking through here. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to have this pathway through this way anymore. I'm going to remove it like that, and I think he can cross over here. But maybe not where we're crossing. Maybe we go over the top. And I probably should continue the parking in here. At the moment it's gone because I did remove that sub element from that building. So I will drag him back over this way and we'll do a ramp down. I like the fact that we've got a ramp on this side, and I'll do some sort of custom staircase over on this side. And the idea is that you can now navigate all up here, take the light rail if you wanted to, or you can walk. So I think I'll probably connect up these two paths like that. And it's obviously not a nice path. I could do a whole lot better, but I am going to save this for the next episode. This is purely just to see if people will use it and get off this road, because I don't really love people on this road. I might even just remove that crosswalk just to really discourage people from getting around there. But realistically, I don't think a huge amount of people would choose to walk this distance. I reckon that people would probably just take the light rail. This would probably be more for tourists. So I think directing them directly into our mall is very fitting for a city. So I don't hate that. And it might take a little while for people to actually calibrate and start making their journey along that path. So in the meantime, let's connect this up a little bit better. And I think it's as simple as just 2 paths. One there and one here. Yeah, there they go. Walk it across. Wonderful. I will also just get that invisible path and I'm going to drag it through the middle of this because sometimes people like to cut through and that way we might actually see some people walking through this. Bloop. Like that. Ha ha ha. Gotcha. Walking through. I knew you would. So a little bit of time has passed and I've just done a couple of things off camera just to see how we can improve and just make this function a little bit better. And I tell you what, people in this city just absolutely love taxis. Even though they're fairly pricey. I'm just gonna bump it up even more. Stop catching taxis, guys. It's expensive. And I can't say a huge amount of people are using my path. I can say a lot of people are continuing to use this road, even though I have banned pretty much all people from crossing over here. They're still doing it. And a section of this is highway, yet people are still walking along it. So I don't really know what else to do there. I think that by adding in a car park will improve things marginally, but I think that is a story for another day. Everywhere else though, a lot of people are jumping on this light rail network and it is just so lovely to see. Especially down here, a lot of people jump on and it's become quite a bustling area, which is just so great. Okay, it's now 11:20 and it is now autumn, which is lovely. And I can't say a huge amount more people are actually using this thing, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't think it really matters that much. I mean, people are using it and I just think that a lot of people in this game choose to walk and I'm not opposed to that. That's like a lovely thing. I wish more people in my city chose to do more walking, but I would like to see more people on my public transport, to be honest. I think that the scale of your cities within City Skylines 2, I think people just go, well, it's just a couple of blocks, I'll just walk it. But we are kind of creating these cities that are scaled down and not going to be massive places. I mean, some people do create massive cities, but I do like to create my cities scaled down so that what would usually be, I don't know, 20 blocks is scaled down into about 2 or 3. So I think that a lot of people choose to walk because it's really not that far. Whereas I would like to see more people driving around and catching my public transport. So can't say a huge amount of people are currently using this, but maybe that's kind of just the way that this game is. And I am trying to think about some sneaky ways we can encourage more ridership and more people, maybe discourage people from walking. Yeah, that's right, I said it. What do you think about that? I think it's important. But what do you guys think about all of this? Let me know if you can think of anything that we should add when we start detailing up these stations. Actually, you know what? Don't even bother. I'm about to record that episode right now. I won't even have time to read your comments. You know, leave them anyway. It'll help out the YouTube algorithm, which I should probably encourage from time to time. But anyway, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in to today's episode. It is always very much appreciated. And a massive shout out to all my beloved patrons supporting the channel over on Patreon and making videos like this possible. JKK, Patrick Radin, David Bourne, Fluffy the Cat, TJ Reed, Adrian Mayers, Megalodon, Firefighter IDLH, Matt Austin, Emil, and Dominic Martin. Cheers guys, see you all in the next one.